Hello, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you right now. You're on this video today, probably because you've got Assetto Corsa, you've got Content Manager, you have SOL, you have Custom Shaders Patch, you have everything you need to enjoy this game, but for some reason, it's just not happening the way you want it. Your graphics might not look how you want, you might not be getting the frame rate that you want. Things might be happening, and it does happen. Not everybody has the same PC, has the same specs, has the same game. This is one of those games where there's such a huge modding community of people online that have done so much to it, and there's so many options you can get, that at the end of the day, everybody's game will be different, and everybody will have different settings that make them happy because they all have different graphics cards and computer setups. Now, I have a 1650 Super with a Ryzen 5 3600 overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz with only 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM on some older B450 Max or something motherboard like that. I don't have the greatest PC setup. I don't have the worst PC setup. I'm still running 117 frames per second at 1080p, 144 hertz on something like Shotoko with traffic. Now, that doesn't even make sense for some people to have that high frames, especially with how my game looks. Now, what I do want to do today is show you guys how to accomplish this with your budget cards, your budget PC, whatever it might be going on, and you can't run these settings that all of these guys have posted on the internet that are pre-saved, and they just don't work well for you. Today, you learn how to have this not happen to you. You learn how to make your own settings today. This is what we're doing. My goal is to have it so you leave this video with some knowledge of what you're doing in here. So, with that being said, one of the very most important things that you need to know is Assetto Corsa settings. Under video, you do have some very graphically demanding things, such as shadow resolution and reflection resolution. Now what these do is if I hit this little I button here, I have 4.8% performance usage from 512 by 512 shadow resolution. Now let's see what happens if I put it up here. My shadows will look great, but I'm running almost 13%, which is almost 3 times the amount of performance use just from the shadow resolution. Now, the person that I watched who made all this stuff, who made a video, they specifically have stated that if you're using a reflection resolution of 1024 by 1024, do not go above 2 faces per frame if you want smooth gameplay. I have not tested that, I cannot tell you, but what I can tell you is the settings you see on your screen right now. If you copy these will work out for a 1650 Super tier or less graphics card, and you will still be very happy with your gameplay. You will be happy with your frames. Now, in here, there's a couple little options that are very minor that don't really do anything. Heat shimmering, sun rays, and stuff like that. That's personal preference. And overall quality of things like your glare, your overall quality, depth of field, motion blur I keep off. Just copy these settings, throw them in your content manager, and don't worry about it for now. One thing I do want to stress out is the anti-aliasing, whether it's MSAA, FXAA, temporal. All of the anti-aliasing, and it's very important to know this, is very graphically demanding. Now, why is it graphically demanding? Well, what anti-aliasing does is it takes unsmooth edges, such as if you see a jagged power line, or you see jagged paint lines in the road, or where your fender connects to your door, the black connection line is a little jagged. Anti-aliasing blends unsmooth particles around surface areas and edges, and it blends them together to make them smooth. It removes the jagged line, it makes things more smooth. However, at the same time, it can also make things blurry. Something like temporal anti-aliasing, which specifically targets the gross, blocky textures around the edges of things, especially while they render, and it will make them smooth. But because of how much it's over smoothing and over anti-aliasing, you will end up with a blurry kind of game. Copy these settings here, and I will show you the rest. Also, under View and UI, I take off Virtual Mirror. I don't show drivers' names, and I play with a 360 degree rotation on my wheel, so I want a 360 degree wheel limit 1 to 1. That means if I turn my wheel halfway, in-game turns the wheel halfway. I want that 1 to 1. I don't play with the HUD. I play completely realistic. Everything is off. Assists are off. I want my wheel to be 1 to 1 ratio. I want the sense of realism. Alright, so we're done here. Also, units you can change Imperial to MPH here. So we're done here. Custom shaders patch. This is what you install. This gives you a whole bunch of graphics options. These can be very graphically demanding and completely tank your FPS. They can look great. They can actually also look bad. So in here, I'm not going to go through everything in here today. What I am going to go through is things that I like to change that I find make a difference for my game. General patch settings. I leave all this. I don't come in here. I don't change anything. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I don't know what all these settings do. If I'm unhappy with something, I'll find a way to fix it. Everything I've been unhappy with, nothing has led me to general patch settings. Brake disc. This isn't going to do anything. That's one tiny little setting that's going to show you your brakes. This is not graphically demanding. Keep this on. It looks nice. Car instruments. Do you want to use your high beams mode by default? I don't. I turned that off. I don't need my switch of my headlights to turn automatically. I don't need any of this. I want to control my stuff. I want to control my car. I want to control my lights, my signals, everything. So I'm going to do that. Chaser camera. I only play in first person. I don't like third person. I don't like sense of anything that's not realistic. I just like to drive my car. I like to be immersed. I like it to feel real. However, if you are stuck with that default basic third person camera and you hate it, don't be worried because so many people do. And what you can do is you can activate this here, the extension, and you can use any one of these cameras. They are much better. You have much more control. They're not as locked to the car. Alternatively, if you're into mods and you know what you're doing, I highly recommend downloading and installing Stereo Box Cam. Stereo Box Cam, you can make your own chase camera, your own field of view, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. I highly recommend that if you play third person. Chat shortcuts, I just keep that off because I don't want anything to pop up in the chat when I hit a keyboard button. I don't need to bind my chat. If I want to chat with somebody, I will chat with somebody on Discord or in the game. I will take care of that, not this automation stuff. Keep this on. This looks great. It's really awesome when you have a nice racing banner, on your windshield and you get all these beautiful colors reflecting into the car. That looks awesome. I would never take that off. I don't come into DXGI and change anything. In fact, it's not even on. Extra effects. This is the one screen that I want to spend a little bit of time with today. This screen here, if you copy what I have, if you do take your time, just copy what I have here, you will notice that it's not even going to matter because I don't have it on active. So you actually don't even need to copy anything. You just have to not have it active. Now the reason why I have this inactive, although it can look great, it can provide all sorts of nice reflections and extra little bit of lighting and all this kind of stuff. It does look good. I don't have this off because it looks bad. I have this off because when this is on, I will lose at least about 30 frames per second, and that is not with temporal anti-aliasing as well. That is this off and everything else on, I will be losing lots of frames. If I turn on temporal anti-aliasing, I'll be losing even more frames. If you have a game that looks blurry, if your friends have a game that looks blurry, if anybody's complaining about their game looking blurry, take this off right here. Anti-aliasing off. It'll fix it. I'm almost sure of it. If not, hit me up. I will fix it for you. We will figure it out. But no one should have to have a blurry game no matter what. That is totally BS. No one needs to have a blurry game. Don't ever let yourself get told it's normal. It's not normal. We can fix it. Alright. So I have this off. If you have a better card than a 1650 Super, if you're running a 20 series, or, if you're one of these guys that have a 30 series, turn this all on. You don't got to worry about it. This is all personal preference at the end of the day. If you can handle it, you can handle it. I would turn this all on if you have the card for it. If not, just leave it off. If you're playing this game on a GT 1030 or a 980 or something, you got an older card, it's not a great card, and you can still hit 60 frames a second, why wouldn't you? I would never suffer to play in 35, 40, 45 frames per second because of a little bit of extra lighting. When you're racing, you gotta have it smooth. 60 frames per second is the goal, because at 60 frames per second, everything becomes smooth. From 30 to 60 is insane. The difference is, out of this world. However, from 60 to 100, it's not. So you want to try and get 60 frames per second on any game that you play, no matter what. If you can do that, that is great. If not, no big deal. It's not the end of the world. But to me, it is a big deal because I just have that trained eye for 60 frames. Anything under 60 frames, I can visually see it, and I cannot unsee it. So let's try and get that for the goal. Fake shadows, not going to be graphically demanding. I leave it on, it looks good. FFB tweaks, I use a LUT. I use a wheel check thing, and basically what it does is it calibrates all the dead zones in my wheel so I don't tweak any force feedback stuff. This is just the free camera. That's all personal preference. I don't use a gamepad, so I don't have any of this on. Graphics adjustments. Once again, I'm using this stuff here. None of this stuff has caused me any issues. In fact, having this all on, all of this post-processing, anti-aliasing maxed out, this AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution maxed out, plus my MSAA and all that stuff, I have a crisp, smooth game. I do not need temporal anti-aliasing when I can put on all of this other stuff. That temporal anti-aliasing is bad news. Don't use it. Trust me. Grass options. I'm not going to max this out because I don't really care about grass, especially on the maps that I play. Now, if I'm playing offline, I'm racing with a couple cars, and I'm getting really high FPS because that will happen. It's less demanding on the tracks. Go ahead and turn this up if you're racing. You know what? You might even want to have two settings like I do, one for Shotoko and online stuff, one for your offline stuff. GUI. Here's another section where, you know, you can just, it's basically all personal preference. There's nothing here that's really crazy that's going to do anything. Just make sure you got all your developer apps on and stuff like that. I don't really mess around with this. Lighting effects. This is another important one for you and your own personal preference. If you have your car specular multiplier up like I do, your headlights will be brighter, you will see further. Headlight wideness. I want to see a little wider. I don't want them to be going down just my one lane. I want them to go across both lanes. I want to see far ahead. I want to make sure I can see cars coming, especially doing 300 in and out of traffic. There's no reason not to have bright headlights. So you can come in here, you can change all that. You can change how many cars are casting lights. If you find that you're only lagging a little bit or dropping frames around a whole bunch of cars that have lights on, turn that down. This is one of those things where you can come in here and you can tune stuff a little bit, but it shouldn't make that much of a difference at the end of the day unless you're racing with 50 cars and you got 50 lights on all 50 cars. That might be a problem. Other than that, don't worry too much about it. Neck effects. This is something 100% personal preference. If you want your head on the game to turn to look at the apex of the corners while you turn through them so you don't have to miss the apex at all, this is a good setting to have on. For me, I cruise online with the buddies, with the boys, with the girls. We have a good time. We're cruising. I drive cars in real life and stuff. I'm sure a lot of people do. And if you've ever driven vehicles in real life, you know that you can turn your head, you can look where you're going, but you can also feel the car. For me, I turn this off because I don't like the visual look without the physical feel. It fucks with me. It makes it so that I can't have it how I want it. AI behavior, I'm not sure what to do here exactly, but one thing you do want to do is have the AI float on. I just know that you want that on. I'm not sure why. New loading screen. That's literally just your loading screen stuff. Particles effects is another good one because you can change things here, like how many sparks are coming out. You can, different smoke and dust. You can have new flames. You can have fireworks. All of this stuff, very, very, very small on the graphics, except for the smoke. If you have your smoke very high detailed and you have lots of smoke coming out and that's when you're lagging, I would come in here, I would turn down these smoke settings and all that stuff. That is very graphically demanding, especially when you're at a car meet and you got that 17-year-old Honda Civic role player and he's sitting there banging the rev limiter for 5 minutes, smoking the tires, and you're going, what the heck, man, just like you would in real life, and you're sitting there lagging. Well, it's because of him, all that smoke. Reflections, keep it active. I don't really change anything in here. I like how the reflections look. And then what we will do is we're just going to skip right down to track adjustments, and you're going to take off allow seasonal adjustments. If you don't want snow on your track, You want to catch your grip, you want to drive fast, turn this off because it will put snow on your track in wintertime. Same with weather effects. If you come in here, seasonal adjustments, take that off. Windscreen effects, active, remove dirt completely. I want my windshield clean all the time. So if you go back and you look over this stuff and you set yours up how I have mine set up, you're not going to have any issues with frames per second. So that's what we're going to call it for now. One thing I do want to mention is when you go to the Assetto Corsa and you go to the video here, enable post-processing effects, you will have some different options here. Now, it is important that before you go into any other graphics settings, the actual in-game settings that you can access, it's important that you find a setting here first that you like with a filter that you like. You can go online, you can download someone else's filter. Whatever you do, just start off with something that you like how it looks with these settings and the frame rates, and then build from there. If you put these settings up and you're getting 150 frames per second, awesome. Go into Extra FX, turn that on, crank everything up, come in here, put high shadow resolutions, put high reflection resolutions, go back in your game. You will eventually hit a point where you're maxed out, but it's very easy to find all that stuff. So for now, I'm going to call it a day, copy these video settings, go into the shaders patch, take off extra effects, go back through this video, put some of these settings in there, and you will notice that your frames per second on what you're playing is going to drastically improve if it's lacking. And I wish that everybody here hopefully does find some sort of information in this video that helps them out, and I just want everybody to be able to enjoy this game. It really sucks when I hear about new people coming on and they're trying to get a part of the community and they have all these graphic settings that suck, and it's not their fault, it's just how the game put them, and then all of a sudden they don't want to play anymore because they're getting such low frames per second. We don't need that to happen to anybody. Together as a community, we can all help each other out. We can all provide each other with knowledge and information that will help each other to benefit through their games, and everybody can have a good time playing all these games together. So with that being said, for now, goodbye. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something today, and that's everything that I was going for. Thank you.